Emergency Preparedness. Carolyn Elliott from our Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response is going to discuss the importance of being involved in your regional healthcare coalition, and Marilee O'Connor, Stacy Farman and Marilee O'Connor, epidemiologists with Boulder County Public Health. Stacy's going to talk about the Marshall Fire. Marilee is going to talk about the NCAR fire response. So let's get started. I am going to talk fast because I have a lot of information and a short amount of time. I would say that I've learned this after working for at least 10 years in our division, which is health facilities and emergency medical services, helping to respond and train communities on emergency preparedness. So
make sure that we got that working. There you go. Good.
So that's what we're going to talk about. And the focus is going to be, your focus, our focus always, is on safety and continuity of care. And that's what this discussion is about. It's about how to keep your residents safe, healthy, during an emergency situation. So the first thing I want to tell you, I said I'm going to move fast. You can get copies of this presentation. I'm happy to help anybody with anything. If you're not already signed up for emergency alerts in your community, we've provided the website that you can go to. And in addition to getting information on your local emergency management, you can also get information to sign up to get alerts. We also have contact info for healthcare coalitions, your local public health agencies, and your local emergency managers. These are all people that you want to try to get to know, attend meetings, check out their website, but these are contacts that you've probably worked with your local public health during COVID, very closely. But these are all partners in emergency preparedness. And again, you can get a copy of this, which has the links. So, emergency preparedness, your program, consists of having an emergency plan, which includes your policies and procedures on how you're going to respond to various types of events that might impact your community. You're also going to include in that, again, how you communicate with your families of your residents, how you communicate to your residents, how you keep in contact with physicians, vendors, and so on. And of course, your training and exercising is also part of this. And so, in the broad scope of things, you are tasked with identifying the risks that are most likely to occur in your community. This includes, of course, geography, based on where your community is located, the proximity to, dams, lakes, streams, and the history of incidents naturally occurring that have occurred in your area. So fire, severe weather, transportation. So it could be an active shooter. It could be a failure in your community. These are all areas that you want to consider when you are identifying the highest risk for your community. But the most important aspect of this that you, and only you can do, is considering your resident population, the types of residents that you have, which ones need special care, which ones use assistive devices, have chronic medical disorders, people who might not speak the language very well. So you consider your population and the people that you're serving in your community and how you would care for them if there's an emergency and what the risks are associated with doing so. I just also want you to know, when you're doing this, identifying what your risks are, one good tip I found is to go and look on your city or county page and look for the risk assessment or their hazard vulnerability assessment. And that will tell you what the risks are in your area. You know what I mean? That tells you, that's for your community, what's happening in your community. Also, all of these other agencies also do risk assessments or hazard vulnerability assessments. They call them different things. So you want to look at your community and find out what they've identified as the risks. For example, I used to live in Broomfield by the airport, and that was one of the risks for that area of Westminster, that a plane, could come down. So you find out what's a risk at your community, and then what are the risks associated right with your building in your area. Again, you're looking at your resident population and any geography around, your building. Here are some resources, again, on the bottom. We recommend the Kaiser Permanente. I know it looks like a big thing. We have links to that. This is an assessment you can do, how vulnerable you are to tornadoes and blizzards and ice storms and so on. And then, as you fill it out, it will identify which risks are the highest for your area. And it looks at the human impact, property impact, impact to your business, and how prepared you are to respond and so on. And again, I'm happy to help anybody that is undergoing this. So in an emergency, there's kind of like you're sheltering in place or you are evacuating. That's typically, or a partial evacuation. But when you're sheltering in place, the beauty of that is that your residents are comfortable, they are in their homes, and they are getting their medications on time, they're getting their meals on time, they're getting their services, they're comfortable, they're closer to their family. So it's optimal, if there's a bad snowstorm, for example, that you would shelter in place, that you could, take into consideration calling in, let's say you're sheltering in place, so you want to call in extra staff. You want to prepare for them to maybe stay overnight. Maybe it's going to be hard for some of these people to get in the morning, some of your staff, and so they might stay overnight. Some might bring a child, or a couple of kids to stay overnight. But again, here are some tips for you guys. Notify your resident families. Always get them involved to come in and help. Maybe they'll take their loved one home, or they'll come and help you and stay overnight and volunteer. Maybe to help make food, maybe to do laundry, maybe to plan an activity. But get help from your families. Make sure you have enough food and water for at least 72 hours or more. Make sure that you have enough medical supplies, that you have stocked enough medications, have access to cash, and have supplies for your staff to stay over. So sheltering in place is optimal because your residents are in their homes, they are comfortable, they are, again, with staff that they have relationships with, and so on. Sorry, I'm not looking over here, you guys. And again, it's very important that your staff have personal and family emergency plans, because when there is an emergency, staff might be called in that wasn't working, staff that are on duty might be asked to stay later. And so it's just really important that your staff's families have a plan so that in the event that you need them, that they might be able to help. And, and everybody pulls together. So you want to train also your teams on what they're going to be doing in an emergency, because they have their regular tasks and their regular jobs, but you also want to make sure that they understand the tasks that they might have to do during an emergency. Again, the role of the family is super important, whether you're sheltering in place or evacuating. You want to coordinate, again, notifying your families. Again, you want to invite them to come in to volunteer to help. We talked about sheltering in place and various ways they can help and assist. But also in an evacuation, they can come, help residents prepare, and help to bring them down and load them into transportation. But you don't want to wait until an emergency to ask your families. If you want families to volunteer or people in your neighborhood to volunteer, invite them over and get them involved in activities that are going on now. If somebody offers to volunteer, take advantage of them now and show them around, show them the exits, get them involved in coming in to volunteer in some way. In other words, you don't have to wait till an emergency, and sometimes you want to get people to get involved right away so that they are, ready and available if there's an emergency. If there is, whether you're sheltering or whether you're evacuating, it's always helpful if family members can come and pick up their loved one and take them home. As long as they have what they need to, medications and any oxygen or anything that they need. But that is one less resident that you have to prepare for, and you can feel good because you know that they're safe with their family. And if you might be on pre-evacuation, or again, it depends. If a tornado, a snowstorm, a fire, a flood, depending on how much time you have. How am I doing on time?
Beautiful, 5 more minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, you might not have to evacuate everyone. Remember that you may only evacuate part of your residents, the residents that are the most infirm, that might need to even, go to a hospital. But you might not have to evacuate everyone. In the event that you do, it's a last resort. The decision is typically made by you as an executive director or administrator or a fire or emergency official. That's when you're moving everyone. And when you are moving everyone, our residents can feel this. They know, they're aware of what's going on. And so I don't want to go through each phase, but the bottom line is, in studies that they have done of the stress of relocating, that the time that you spend preparing beforehand is going to reduce the negative consequences of you having to evacuate them. In other words, simply, the better prepared you are, and the more that you practice this, the more efficiently you're going to be able to, move your residents. When you're thinking that you might have to evacuate, it could be, we've had communities over the summer whose air conditioning went out that had to move their residents. You want to make agreements with multiple providers not just one in your community. If you have a fire, or you have a technology incident that just affects your community, or a water pipe bursts, or something happens that you need to relocate folks, any one of your neighboring communities is going to help you. But if the whole community is involved in the incident, like the Marshall Fire or the Laudo Canyon Fire or the floods in 2013, when everybody's impacted, then you want to go, 20 or 30, miles away. And we certainly had that with the Marshall Fire. Don't take so you want to make these agreements, and you want them to be with communities that are like yours, right? If you have residents that have cognitive decline, it would be great if you could find another community that also serves residents like that. But you want to take them to a place that is similar to the types of services that you provide. You want to take as many staff as you can. So you want to, again, there's samples of agreements, of several different types of agreements you can make, and you want to revisit them, staffs change. And of course, in an emergency, if you can't reach somebody, you're going to be reaching out to another community that you might not even know, asking them, can we bring our residents there? So you want to talk about how many beds they have available, do you need to bring bedding, staffing, if you're bringing your staff, where can they stay? Do they have room? Is there a place nearby? How about food? Are your residents going to be hungry when they get there? What are they going to do for food the next day? These are things you want to talk to them about. Space for activities, whether they have an empty med cart or you're going to take yours when you're evacuating. So here's more. If you're receiving people, here's some tips for that, right? You tell the people that are evacuating what you can provide and what you can't provide. You try to get a list of the residents if you can. Then you can actually choose rooms for them. Some residents are living by themselves and now they're going to be joined in another room with somebody. So maybe you want to find out from the facility, who might we put together. Some of these things, they happen pretty rapidly sometimes. Sometimes you have that pre-evac notice, and sometimes you're just evacuating. But be welcoming, offer food and drink. Does anybody need medical care? There have been situations where people have had some difficulty breathing after being exposed to smoke. So maybe, you want to, again, just be helpful, help plan for family visits. This is some tips on evacuating. 1 minute. Okay, so these are tips on evacuating, you guys. These are tips on transportation. I have like 30 seconds. So these are tips on transportation. The main thing is you want to leave as early as you can. You don't want to be on the road with other people and get stuck in traffic for a long period of time if you can help it. And if you are, when you're on the road again, you want to plan. These are all tips. Tips for go kits, picture IDs, tracking your residents, even if you write it down on a piece of paper. Who's going on where, what vehicle are they going on? You want to label everything. These are tips for that. Go kits for residents, staff. Again, what to prepare for when you're moving to another community, and how to make them comfortable after the event, and then how to bring them home. And here's some more resources. You can check out our website. Remember, a goal without a plan is just a wish. Here's my contact information, and if you ever have to evacuate or you're having a problem at your community, you can reach out to your licensing program manager or me. I'm happy to help you. I'm sorry I didn't have more time, but there's 4 of us, okay.
All right, who's up next?
Is Carolyn Elliott.
Do you want to click for the slides for her?
Okay. Do you want to?
Sure. Yes.
Yes, good morning everyone. I'm Carolyn Elliott and I am the Healthcare Coalition Coordinator for the state of Colorado, and I I worked with Melanie and have worked closely with her for, gosh, maybe the last 5 or 6 years with this emergency preparedness program. The healthcare coalitions were really born out of the 9/11 attacks, and it was at that time that the U.S. Decided that if anything were to happen, such a disaster like that, and loss of communication and loss of transportation efforts and supply chain issues disrupted, we need to have a system in place to ensure that everyone is taken care of, and that more so, especially the healthcare medical emergency system was not broken. So the healthcare coalitions officially began here in Colorado in 2017. In Colorado, we had roughly 55 healthcare coalitions that were totally volunteer-based prior to 2017. But in 2017, the federal government decided to fund these healthcare coalitions within each state. So we made application, and Colorado was awarded almost $4 million to divvy up across the state. So the healthcare coalitions are really a network of individual, public, and private organizations. And we here at the state, we help them to partner with each of them throughout the regencies. And the whole purpose of it is so that you can respond to emergencies and disasters, and ultimately you just increase your local and community resilience. So there's HCCs, they're just composed of all different diverse members. The core members are the hospitals, of course, local public health departments, the emergency managers, the EMS, which is the emergency medical services, paramedics, firemen, whatnot. And then we also add the behavioral health component in there as well. So you need all 5 of those to operate as a functioning HCC. And then you factor in all of the ancillary entities, such as yourself, assisted living, long-term care, dialysis centers, home health, hospice, whatnot, and then you have a regional coalition working together to make sure that medical needs are not disrupted during an emergency. So I'm not sure what slide you're on because I can't really see. So are we on the slide with the what is a healthcare coalition?
We have a purple circle with lots of little pictures around it.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Be glad that I'm not there with you today. I got the worst head cold. It's a virus. I know a lot of people have been complaining about it and they're homesick with it. My head is just completely clogged. But this is not all-inclusive of all the agencies on here, but it kind of gives you an idea of how centered the healthcare coalition is and how many agencies and organizations are involved. On the following slide, we actually have a healthcare coalition regional breakdown going from the 55 healthcare coalitions down to 9. So you see counties working across counties and rural areas working with some metropolitan and city areas to form their healthcare coalition. And you just have to look on the map and find out where is my HCC, and because of where our facility is located, which HCC would we belong to. Let's see, so the whole purpose, again, as I said, is to work on building this resilient medical response, but to also build a resilient community in all aspects of medical care, food chain, supplies that may be needed. So your partnerships can actually cast a really wide net. So the sooner you identify who your partners are early on, the sooner you can depend on them and they can depend depend on you for shared resources, all kinds of shared resources. So hopefully all of your facility directors and administrators have reached out to other hospital care coordinators, skilled nursing care coordinators, home health, all of the agencies that would be involved and that are able to help you. Now, what they all have in common is they're all members of the HCC, the Regional Healthcare Coalition. Sorry. So they, HCCs will help you, like Melanie discussed in her presentation, all of the needs and resources that you might identify if such an emergency should arrive. So, we at the state work with the CDC and we work with public health agencies and hospitals to identify, different resources that you might need, especially there at your assisted living or skilled nursing. I mean, we work with all kinds of entities and organizations. First Line is actually a national collaborative, and we actually established that at the health department last year. And what we discovered is that it is a volunteer organization that they go to assisted living, long-term care facilities, skilled nursing homes, hospitals, clinics all over, and provide them with training to help them better provide education for their staff, their workers, and whoever the front-facing person is for that organization or that facility type. So they can offer all kinds of assistance with epidemiology and labs, and I know that doesn't necessarily apply to you in assisted living, but it absolutely could if it came down to where you had a supply chain issue where you were unable to get the cleaning supplies you need, unable to get some of the resources that you need to keep the assisted living open, operating at a safe level. Some of the benefits, Project First Line works directly with the HCC, so they can come in and give you all kinds of training to respond to more community disasters, such as the ones that Melanie did talk about. Emergencies related to power outages, that's something that can happen at any facility. Water disruption, infectious disease outbreaks, there could be an influenza outbreak going on in your assisted living center. COVID, I put in here monkeypox because they also address all of the new special pathogens coming down. They can help you with your respiratory protection programs, so there's not a disruption of people that might need oxygen or other equipment that maybe a generator is not there to keep them working, or they're running low on oxygen and the supply chain has been disrupted and you can't get that oxygen to that facility. Also with maintaining a stock of PPE, that is preparedness, I'm drawing blank here, but it's protective equipment. And perhaps during the COVID outbreak, you were given masks and gloves and all kinds of antiseptic and antibacterial, so that HCCs can help ensure that you have a backup of those supplies if you are running low or completely running out. They can also help with staffing issues. So if you have created a connection with your HCC, they can put out an alert saying that your center needs some staffing, or is having some staffing issues, and you need some assistance with finding some temporary staff to come in and replace those that you need replacing. Again, talking about the antibiotic stewardship and training and overview, they can train your staff on those types of stewardships. The equipment training, the risk of infection, all of this training can be offered to your staff so you're able to better assist your residents at your assisted living, and just offer more efficient cleaning and disinfectant training. I'm sure you already have your guidelines down, but you can always use, some more, maybe some efficient ways and maybe some connections to some more efficient products to use. So your HCCs can become a very good partner to have, and the training, the education, the partnership, they can help you develop your plans for preparedness and evacuation, develop relationships with transportation companies. So your HCCs have a lot to offer. I have my email here at the bottom. If you'd like to contact me directly, I can put you in touch with each of the 9 regional HCC coordinators so you can find out more about your local HCC and how you can become a member or attend some of the meetings and the trainings and the exercises they put in. So, excuse me, I apologize. And that's about all I have. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me and put up with my congested head. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day. And from there, I guess I'll pass it on to Stacy.
Can you hear us, Stacy?
I can.
Beautiful.
So I'm going to put my slides up because I cannot see your slides. So we are here today to really give you a perspective of what public health did to assist the long-term care facilities during the Marshall and Incar fire. And this experience is definitely through our eyes, and we understand that what the long-term cares and assisted livings went through during these times was much different, and we have the utmost respect for all of the just amazing work that they did and the emotions that they went through. So, but I had the most experience with the Marshall fire, and just to kind of give you a background for those of you who maybe not are in this area or weren't really exactly sure what happened. The Marshall fire was a truly unprecedented event. It happened only over 12 hours. It encompassed 6,000 acres. Over 1,000 structures were lost: homes, businesses, hotels. 6 injuries, which is amazing, and unfortunately 2 deaths. Won't dwell on this, but it just kind of give you a sense. The first 911 call actually for the Marshall fire happened at 11 a.m. and by 11:44, reverse 911s were going out to unincorporated Boulder County and Superior areas. The fires were already in neighborhoods when this first alert went out. Our first call to Boulder County Public Health was received around 1, and that was from a long-term care facility that was in the path of the fire, wondering about evacuation. At 2 p.m., the first Louisville long-term care started to evacuate, and fire was already into the parking lot of that building. And then the second 911 reverse call didn't come out until 3 p.m., and most of Louisville had already started to evacuate or had already evacuated. And really, we bring this, just talk about this because we want to stress the importance of the relationships that we had developed with these facilities during COVID. So we joke that if anything good happened from COVID, is that we developed these relationships with long-term cares, and they were able to call us, and we were both able to work together during this event. And again, just a picture look at what happened with the Marshall fires. 11 or 12:10, it was already in a marketplace where they were evacuating Target and Costco's. This is a picture of Marilee's console on her car, giving an alert out. This is a hotel in Superior, just at 12, a little before 12:30, and then this is just a picture of a sign one of the long-term carers had put up because of the ash covering the building. So, you know, the most unique things about the Marshall Fire, and I won't dive into it, but it's just to know that events like this happen very quickly. Nobody could predict it. There was very little time to arrange transportation. All of the long-term carers and assisted livings were trying to evacuate at the exact same time, and we're using the same resources. And it was just this this event that nobody could anticipate. Unique aspects, again, you know, there was no time for shelter in place. People that were on at work that day needed to make, you know, emergency plans right away. They had no warning, and they, you know, had to decide whether or not they should go or stay, even if they weren't in the direct path, just because of this fast-moving nature of the fire. And of those who were working, because it was over Christmas vacation, a lot of the emergency staff were gone, so it was a lot of agency staff working. So, lessons learned, you know, be prepared, know where your plan is and practice it with staff, and make sure your agency staff know where emergency plans are. Anticipate changes and be flexible. This fire really brought that to home. Get connected with your local OEM, which is your Office of Emergency Management, Public Health, your CDPHE health facilities, your local EMS, fire, police. Get to know those agencies and those resources very well, and keep your information and contacts updated. That was a crucial step in getting people transportation and getting placement in other facilities when their anticipated evacuation sites were also evacuating. So I know that's quick and down and dirty, but I'm going to give it to Marilee.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I am going to talk a little bit about the NCAR fire. One of the reasons that is this booming like really loud, or is it okay? Okay. It's echoing back at me like I'm in an auditorium. One of the reasons I'm talking about the NCAR fire response is that I live in Louisville, Colorado. So I was not able to help with that, even though a lot of the facilities that I have built strong relationships with are also located in Louisville. So one thing that hasn't been mentioned today that I would like you to please remember is that it's important for you to be prepared as an individual for wherever you live in your own life, because you're only as prepared as you are at home, if that makes sense. If you get through, an emergency alert comes through to your phone, it might be for your facility or it might be for your home address, and you want to know that you're ready for either one. Just my personal soapbox. So the NCAR fire was very different than the Marshall fire. And I'm the last person of this panel standing between you and lunch. And I know you have heard a ton of information about fires. So I'm just going to ask you for 3 more minutes so that we can get through 3 action steps and take home messages. The NCAR fire was more of a shelter-in-place situation instead of an immediate evacuation. I will let you go through these riveting slides afterwards that take you through the step-by-step of what things looked like. But the one thing that I do want to point out to you is that an emergency alert was sent out early on in the response, rather than after the majority of the evacuations had taken place. So, unique aspects of the NCAR fire. It took place in the immediate aftermath of the Marshall fire. You can't unsee those things once you know that they're possible. So if you think about the same communities being impacted, they know that structures can be lost. They know life can be lost. So people might be erring on the side of evacuating instead of sheltering in place. The NCAR fire did include air support, lower wind speeds, and instead of it being this fastest moving urban fire in the history of our lifetimes, it was a situation where maybe you had time to look at your plan, to gather more information, to shut off your HVAC so that you can shelter in place, rather than a look out the window, I've received no alert and the bushes are on fire. Oh, it looks like the font on the right magically got small, and I'm going to use that as a sign that everything on the left is what I would like you to remember. So, despite the fact that these two fires were very different, one shelter in place primarily, other immediate evacuation, they both were a red flag day. I don't know if you've ever seen those alerts come up on your phone on the weather telling you it's a red flag day. That means that the weather is perfect for chaos of fires. They both took place outside of traditional fire season. Who was expecting a fire of that magnitude on December 30th? No one. Again, it was on a school break. A lot of people were out for spring break or traveling, so the contact information was different than it usually is. And again, the mandatory evacuation areas did include congregate settings. Next slide, please. I'm doing that, so I'll do it myself. The immediate actions following an alert. These are the same, regardless of whether it is an evacuate right now or a shelter in place. So you've received an alert, or you've noticed the bushes are on fire outside. One of those two. That's an immediate threat if the bushes are on fire. An alert means you have the opportunity, if there's not an immediate threat, to gather more information. I'm over time, so I'll go through this quickly, but you can, again, look at that afterward. So, the three things that I wanted you to remember. If you would like to eat lunch today, you need to sign up for the emergency notifications. When you've finished, you can hold your phone in the air and then we will serve you. I'm kidding, you don't have to do that. But that is how important I feel about you signing up for these, so that you know, okay? The second thing I'm going to ask you to do today, relationships and healthcare coalitions. I cannot begin to tell you how important it was for us to have Melanie's expertise at the state during these responses. So you're at an in-person conference here. That is rare and amazing and a new thing. Please take that opportunity to meet the folks around you, to build relationships, to start talking about MOUs. And this brilliant woman gave you her contact information. That is a gold mine. Please, I don't want to take up all your time, but just know that you're not alone as you move forward in preparing for this. So step 1, emergency notifications. Step 2, relationships. Sign up for your healthcare coalition. And the third is preparation, right? And I would like to motivate you to start preparing when you leave here. If you do not have that motivation, there are links to videos in here. One is of a Chuck E. Cheese. I keep saying burning bushes because literally the people were playing the arcade games, turned around, bushes are on fire. So you can see how fast something like this can happen. The next is, there's a link to the Costco and Target evacuations that Stacy mentioned. Trying to get people to understand that we're shopping, that they needed to leave their cart. The disbelief is unreal when you see it. So, takeaway, fire season is 365 days a year. I don't mean to scare you, but this is real, so sign up for your notifications, sign up for the Healthcare Coalition to join that, and remember these 3 steps in your preparation. First, we talked about notifications. Second, assure life safety, check for immediate threat. Marshall Fire, immediate threat. NCAR, you had the opportunity to validate that you weren't necessarily immediately impacted, and you had the chance to gather more information. The third is to stay informed. So in this gold mine of a presentation. There are so many links of where you can find the accurate information so that when that alert comes through on your phone, you know exactly where to go to find out if you're impacted or not. And I'm over, I'm sorry. But again, I guess you can have lunch without necessarily signing up. I'll pass it back to Peter.
Do we have some questions? That's a lot. We will send this out to you, and with the